All right. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I believe that great ideas need a voice. And I've been working with startups for the last years, and I'm here to help you answer two big questions. And those two questions are, first, why do investors say no? And second, how do you get them to yes? Now, for anybody who isn't raising money right now and you're more likely to pitch to customers, I can tell you that pretty much everything that I'm going to share with you this afternoon will work for pitching customers. Most of it's relevant for pitching customers too. Now, I've been working with startups for 11 years. I've coached 2,500 of them, and they've raised close to €500 million. And what I've seen is there's a big challenge between when you want to tell a story and when you want to listen to it. So let's just picture, you've been trying to get that meeting with a customer or an investor, and finally you get that meeting. You've got a half-hour meeting, and you think, yes, fantastic. I'm going to tell them the whole story, all the details, because if they get more details, they will understand more, right? And then they're more likely to believe. So this is the pitcher. Now let's take a look at the listener, the investor especially. Oh no, this is the 6th meeting I've had today. I really hope that this meeting is short, that they just get to the point, because I'm really tired. I'm almost overwhelmed with details. I just want the essence. So you can see the gap between these two, and this happens consistently. We always overestimate how much attention is available from the person that we're pitching to. Now, my goal as a pitch coach is to help anybody who's trying to bridge the gap between these two, to help startups make good decisions about what to tell at the first stages of their interaction with their investors and with their customers, and to make sure that we give them the best stuff that we've got so that they're hooked and then they show interest for the rest of it. So great ideas need a voice. I believe that there's a lot of people in this room who have got some fantastic ideas, but have you ever had an idea and nobody listened? It's a horrible feeling. I don't want anyone to have that feeling. I've had that feeling myself. It burns you inside. Now, my goal is that everybody has the tools to go out there, be heard, be understood, and then be judged not on the pitch, but on the value that you deliver. So great ideas need a voice. That's what we're here for today. Help you find a voice for your great ideas. Now, you will hear the phrase, it's almost impossible to raise investment. It's getting a bit easier, but it's still pretty tough. But I believe you can massively increase your chances if you're willing to run the marathon. And it is a marathon, because the startups that I speak to who have been funded, they tell me phenomenal numbers of meetings. It is a persistence game. But you can cut the odds, you can narrow down the process by following some key things at different stages of the process. And I'm going to walk you through those key things. So let's look at the 3 stages where startups fail in the investment process. The biggest failures are at the cold outreach to an investor to get a meeting, the first meeting in the first 2 minutes of the meeting, and then the third one is at the end of the second meeting. And I'm going to walk you through what you can do to solve each of these situations. So it starts. First, let's take a few numbers, because I just want to share with you the reality of what investors are experiencing. So I'm going to give you some numbers from Peak Capital. Peak Capital is an investor in Amsterdam. They have a lot of people there. There's about 9 or 10 people who are listening and receiving pitches. So these are pretty big numbers, but it gives you a percentage that you can map out no matter what the size of the investor. They say that they see around 12,000 pitches in some shape or form every year. Cold pitches at events like this, through email, through LinkedIn. And from those 1,000 pitches, they take those 12,000 pitches, they take 1,000 meetings. Now, 1,000 meetings is a lot, but it's a 92% drop-off. So how can you get into the 8%? We'll talk about that. Then, what's interesting is that from those 1,000 meetings, they take about 80 second meetings. And by chance, that's a 92% drop-off. They tell me that isn't planned. It just happens that way. So we want to make sure that we're in the 8% at each of these stages. Now, What goes wrong with cold outreach? Let's take this first one, because this is where a lot goes wrong. 92% fail because wrong match and too much information. Now, wrong match you can fix pretty easily. It's about doing the research. Very simply, if you are, let's say, a hardware and software company, and you send a pitch to a company that says on their website, we invest in SaaS marketplaces, then there's not going to be a match, right? So there's no point in taking time. Now, what people say to me is, they say, yeah, but we automate that process. We just send out 10,000 messages. But I've spoken to investors. They can smell those automations. You have an exponentially better chance of getting an investor's attention by taking a bit of time, researching what their interests are, and talking about their interests. And I'll explain how you can do that in a moment. So, wrong match. Don't bother with investors. Don't waste their time or waste your time sending ideas to investors that don't match your product and you don't match their investment thesis. But the second thing, too much information, the biggest reason why they say no. Now, there are 2 steps to the information that we send, and you can fix the problem of too much information. And there are 2 steps. One is the message, and the second is the attachment. So let's talk about the message. You probably heard of Guy Kawasaki, and some years ago, Guy shared that he had 600 emails in his inbox. He said, I've read them all, I just haven't answered them all. Why? Because they're too long. And a long email requires brain power and time to answer. So he said, if you want me to do something, if you want to get my attention, send me a 5-sentence email. So what should be in that email? What are the 5 sentences? He said, first, who are you? Second, what do you want? Third, why are you asking me? Fourth, why should I do what you're asking? And fifth, what's the next step? Now, let me give you an example, because pretty much every week I get a message on LinkedIn from a startup saying, hey, we're a startup and we're working on such and such and we're building a platform that's doing this. Could you check my pitch? So let's just work through the 5 sentences. Who are they? Well, they're really good at telling who they are. We all are, right? We're good at telling what we do. Then, what do you want? Free advice. Free advice. Please check my pitch. That's pretty clear. The third thing, why are you asking me? Well, I guess they've read my LinkedIn profile. I'm a pitch coach, but it's not explicitly explained. Maybe the most important one is the fourth one. Why should I do what you're asking? Because it's kind of like my job to check pitches. That's how we pay the bills. So why would I do it for free? Now, the thing is that sometimes I do. If it's an impact startup and they send me a clear 5-sentence email, I will do it. I'll take 15 minutes to give them feedback on their pitch because I think that's important. But if they simply send me, hey, we're doing this, can you give me feedback? It doesn't follow this, and I'm not sure why I should do it. And then the fifth one, what's the next step? Well, it's not clear what they mean by feedback. Do they want a detailed analysis and a breakdown, or do they just want 5 sentences? Now, if you think about for yourself, you can think about how you approach an investor, and you can think, who are you? Startup. What do you want? We'd love to talk to you about investment opportunities. Why are you asking me? You invest in these kind of companies, and we match your investment thesis because of this reason, this reason, this reason. Why should I do what you're asking? Just last week, we won competition X, or, for example, we just reached a milestone, 5,000 users, we're ready to scale. Or something else, something that's happening in your business that says, these people really need to contact you and talk now. And then the fifth one, what's the next step? Simple thing, shall we meet in the next 2 weeks, these times, these times. Now, if you want to get this 5-sentence email and an example, I wrote a book called Blue Moon Pitch. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll give you the QR code a little bit later on. I give you the 5 sentences, and I give you an example of those 5 sentences as well. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, send me just a 1-line email will be enough, and I will send you all the slides, the whole book that this is in, and some other stuff. All right, so let's talk about the attachment. Because people say to me, okay, should I send a slide deck with my 5-sentence email? And investors have told me the answer to this. And here's one quote from one investor. He said, we need to be able to scan it in 2 minutes. Now just position yourself in the seat of the investor. It is Thursday afternoon. It's 4:30. They receive your email through the website. They click open. There's a huge email telling everything about your business. Now maybe they quickly scan it. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. And then they click on the attachment and it's a 27-slide, all the details attachment. Are you going to read it? I wouldn't. Probably it's going to go in the maybe read later or delete file. So think about this scanning in 2 minutes. Now I think you can make a short version of your pitch deck. A lot of people do. And investors are used to scanning through things like that. But I want to give you one suggestion, which is think about sending a one-pager. And I want to walk you through a one-pager that worked. It's a company called 24 Sessions. They didn't get investment or do an exit because of this one-pager, but it was one of the steps that they took. They exited to MessageBird a little while ago. So what you see is why them, and it's very visual, huh? So you see why them and what we do. Just 3 sentences on each, or 3 lines on each. Some logos. They already love us. That's traction, proof, and then some facts and figures. Some quantification of the value that they're delivering. And then you can see a visual identification of the total solution, something that gives you some easy visuals. You then see some benefits, a different way of packaging the product. You see the leadership, and finally, the contact details. This is enough for them to be able to make a decision. Now, if you'd like to get those one-pagers, I've got 5 examples of one-pagers. And once again, just connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a one-line message, and I will share those with you. Now, just to make it easy, and by the way, the guy who made these, and who makes these every day, and makes slide decks like you've never seen, is Robin Doman. So do think about, if you're looking for somebody who designs pitch decks, he's the best there is. And I've been doing this for 11 years and worked with him for 10. He's fantastic. Okay, this is the chance if you want to get access to the slides and so on. I'm going to take a sip of water while you're doing that. All right. Let's talk about the second moment. So we talked about the cold outreach, but now you've got a meeting. You're one of the 1,000 out of 12,000. Okay, so let's remind ourselves, the pitcher, the listener. The pitcher, let's tell them the whole story, right? But the listener, it's the 6th pitch meeting of the day. So what goes wrong in the first 2 minutes of first meeting? Too much history, too much product, and too long a story. Now let me give you an example. This is a real example. I coached a startup. An investor introduced me, and they said there's this team in our portfolio. They're doing great, but yeah, they really can't pitch. Can you help them? So we did a call, and I said to the guy, Lars Erik in Norway, I said, okay, Lars Erik, you don't have to pitch it, but just tell me a bit about the business. So he said, okay, David, well, yeah, we started in 2017. It was me and a couple of friends, and well, actually they left after a couple of years. But anyway, so we raised our first seed funding at the beginning of 2018, and we launched out. So after about 3 minutes, we were up to 2020. Now, I'm British, and I didn't interrupt him until I started thinking, hang on, I really need to know what they're solving. So I said, I'm sorry, Lars Erik, sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. What are you solving? He said, oh, yeah, we make contracts 70% faster. Sorry? You make contracts 70? There's a lot of those, right? He said, yeah, millions made every day. We make them much faster. Okay. Do you make them cheaper? He said, yeah, 60% cheaper. Oh, fabulous. Well, they're really expensive, right? Contracts? Yeah, they're really expensive. Have you got any sales? Yeah, we did 1.5 million last year. I think we'll do 6 million this year. Okay. Have you got any customers I might recognize? Yeah, well, there's Red Bull. Okay. Now, this is an extreme example, but I come across this all the time, that the gold dust is hidden away in the middle of the pitch, the real value of what they're offering. But that pitch, instead of we started in 2017, too much history, what it should start with is we make contracts 70% faster and 60% cheaper. And there's millions and millions created every day costing billions of euros. And let me show you how our solution works for Red Bull in their human resources department. That's a great way to get them straight in to the pitch and establish your credibility. So think about the best stuff you've got. See what happens in the first 2 minutes. I've heard this version lots and lots of times. What investors tell me is they put the startup in one of 3 mental buckets. I've heard various different versions, but it basically comes down to this. And these 3 mental buckets are, first, yes, I'm excited. Tell me more. Second, maybe. Let's see how it pans out. And the third one is, no, this is not for me. Now think about Lars Erik there. There was a good chance he was in the second or third, right from the beginning. It's really difficult to jump out of that bucket. Now, of course, if you've got 6 million revenue and Red Bull, you have a chance, but most of us don't. So we need to give them our best stuff in the first 2 minutes. You see, that's what you can fix. In the first 2 minutes of the pitch, give them your best stuff. Now, what is your best stuff? It's what they're interested in, not what you want to tell. So I really want to emphasize this. Over the last 11 years, I have learned if you get clear on who the audience is and what they care about, your pitch will always be better. So let's think about, what do they want to know? Tell them the things they want to know. First, huge unsolved problem. Not history or when you started the company. What are you solving? And notice the word huge. We need to put one marker on it. So for example, if I say to you, parking's quite difficult, that doesn't help you, right? How difficult is it? Wasn't difficult for me. So we need somehow a number that quantifies how much it is. So perhaps, for example, you could say in cities like Brussels, Amsterdam, New York, and all major cities around the world, there are over 100 million drivers every day wasting 20 minutes on average looking for a parking space. So there you go, you've quantified it. 100 million, and it's not all drivers, it's major cities. And how long does it take? 20 minutes. So that's a huge unsolved pain. Now think about, what's the huge unsolved problem that you're solving? Now the second one is decent product. Of course, we love to talk about the product, but I want to emphasize the word decent. So decent, what I mean by that is a very carefully chosen word. They just want to see that it looks okay. An investor, this is the most brutal thing for any founder. See, when somebody says to you, what are you doing? Well, I'm working on the product. So we tell them what we're doing, working on the product. But what they actually want to know is, does it basically work, but what does it solve, and how much benefit does it give? How much improvement does it give? So they're not so interested in products. They're interested in huge unsolved problems and solutions that give a result. So for example, I could tell you that this parking app is, I could give you the technical pitch. Instead of saying parking's quite difficult, we built an app for that, I could try and convince you with technology, right? I could say to you, so yeah, parking's quite difficult, so we built an app, and yeah, it's using Internet of Things. There's a lot of sensors in it. We use the blockchain for security. Yeah, there's generative AI. Who wouldn't use that? And of course, we connect to we use open APIs to connect to other platforms. Are you convinced? Probably not, right? It's not compelling. But this is often what we do. We lead with too much product. But what they're interested in is huge unsolved pain, something about the product, and the result. So I would instead say, so we built this parking app, a lot of technology behind it, but customers press a big fat "find me a parking space now" button, and 9 times out of 10, they find that parking space in 2 minutes, not 20. So huge unsolved problem, basic product, and then quantified solution. Then once they're hooked on the value, you can start to tell them about the details. But before you get there, we need to show 2 more things. One is progress and traction. Now, of course, not everybody's got traction, but if you have, tell them. Tell them how far you're going, how far you've grown, what's the speed of growth. And if you're validating, how have you validated? Have you done pilots, or you've interviewed customers? What have you done to connect with potential users? And the fourth thing is amazing team. Now, this is really challenging because what we tend to do is we want to tell about Bill and Jill and John and so on, but investors first, they're looking for things like complementary skills, or one really standout skill from one of the people in the team, or one piece of experience like previous startup success, something like that. So at the early stage, just give them a couple of key things about the team. Now, again, I've spoken to investors and I've asked them, is this what you want to know? Of course they want to know business model, go-to-market, all those other things. But if they're not hooked on this, they won't be hooked by a business model. So we need to hook them first, get them hooked on the value, and then they're interested in how does it work? What do you plan to do to scale? All right, the next thing is tell them quick. I said 2 minutes, and that's because it's good to think about structuring your next pitch meeting. This is the same for customers or investors. And that is, here's how we usually plan a 30-minute meeting. So once again, remember, the pitcher, yay, come into my world. The investor, please, six meeting of the day. What we usually plan is 20 minutes pitch, then we'll do 10 minutes Q&A, and then we'll link arms at the end, walk off into the sunset, and we've raised money, right? That's sort of how we picture it. Problem is, here's the reality. First, 3 minutes tech. Now that matters because when they say 30 minutes, they really mean 30 minutes, especially online. So it's not 30 minutes, it's 27 minutes. Tech, connect to the screen, Zoom update, you name it. Then that 20-minute pitch, let's be honest, it gets to 25, and you can do the math. Before you get to the end of the meeting, no time for Q&A. So how should we do this? Now again, I don't have an opinion on this. I ask investors, what do you want? And this is what they told me. So, a better plan. First, 3 minutes for tech. Okay. But then, tell them at the beginning, we're going to make a 3-minute, or a 4-minute, or a 5-minute pitch, but no more than 5 minutes. Just to remind them why they agreed to take this meeting. Because they agreed, right? But their default position is no. You know, more than 9 times out of 10, they say no. So we need to find out what's their no and get it on the table. And we will not find that out by telling them all about our product. So what we need to do is give them those 4 things that I've mentioned. And if there's anything else, like one killer unique thing about your product or something else, package that in those 3 to 5 minutes. But tell them, I'm going to do a 3-minute pitch and stick to it ruthlessly. Stick to it. Don't tell them it's going to be 3 and then do it in 8. But tell them we'll do a 3-minute pitch and then I'd love to answer all your questions afterwards. Then you get a chance to do a beginning, middle, end of your pitch. And then you ask the magic question. And the magic question is, what would you like to know more about? What's on your mind? Would you like to know more about the market, more about the product, the technology? Would you like to know more about customers? What's on your mind? And then they'll tell you. And then you're in a Q&A. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, here's 2 examples of meetings with investors that I've had personally. One investor, we started, and surprisingly enough, this very rarely happens, but this guy was immediately a product nerd. We said, what would you like to know more about? And he said, oh, you're using this kind of technology. Tell me more about that. And then we talked about product, and then what's unique, and some other stuff. Another investor, we said, what would you like to know more about? She said, tell me about your customers. How do they use your product? How many of them are there? How long do they use it? Which ones leave? Which ones? It was a 30-minute talk about customers. I can tell you, they didn't ask a single question about the product. Not a single question. Now, that doesn't mean that it will always be like that, but the point is you don't know. We don't know what's on their mind. And if we broadcast for 20 minutes, we'll never find out. So the goal is get into a conversation. The best pitch is a conversation. And then one more very important point. 5 minutes before the end of the meeting, focus on next steps. And then you can ask another magic question. And that is, we're having a great conversation right now. Let me just go back one step. We're having a great conversation right now. Is this something for you? Now, investors are masters at being vague, but try to get them to a yes or a no. Shall we plan a follow-up meeting? And if they say, well, I have to talk with some partners and so on, you can keep going and say, I'd just like to know, do you think that this will fit with your investment portfolio? Is there any value in us taking a next step? Now, if they say no, then ask this second magic question. Which 2 to 3 things would we need to change for you to look at this again? If this was an investor you really want to get connected with, ask them this question, and then they'll tell you. And the great thing about this is that if you get some concrete stuff, you can go away, and in the next 3 months, you can work on it ruthlessly, and then knock on the door and say, hey, we met you 3 months ago, you gave us this feedback, and we've worked on that. Would you take a meeting? Now, again, I've asked investors, and they said 100%, absolutely. I said no, but I didn't mean no forever. I just mean no, not yet. So that shows resilience, that you're going to go back, knock on the door, and keep going. They love that. So let's talk about the third step, the end of the second meeting. And there's a lot of things that can happen in a second meeting. Honestly, there's quite a few things that could go wrong here. But there's one big thing that is often the bit where they're 50-50. It comes down to this. See, investors and customers say things like, I want to see the passion in the eyes of the entrepreneur. I want to know why you're totally committed to this. Now, this is really difficult because passion, sometimes you've built a product and it's just something that you're really good at execution. But the fact is that every investor I speak to, they're looking for passion, that enthusiasm for solving this problem, that belief that you're the team to make this happen. Now, I think what they really mean is they want your vision. What they don't want to know is, we started in 2017. They want to know, how big could this thing go? Where are you going? What's your ambition? What do you want to solve? And how big do you want to go with this business? And I'll give you an example. I coached a guy last year called René Janssen. They raised 38 million euros. And honestly, it's not a surprise. When you talk to this guy, and you say, okay, what's your plan? He says, okay, so next year we're going to do such and such, and then we're going to introduce this product. We're going to acquire this company. In 2027, we'll move offices, we'll do this and we'll do that. And in 2030, we'll be a unicorn. And you just think, oh, absolutely. The guy has a crystal clear picture of his vision, and he just talks about it like it's happening. When you look at Americans, you listen to Americans pitching, they don't say, we hope to. What they say is, we are. We will be. They talk in the present. When they introduce the president, the president or somebody who's going to try and be president, when they introduce Kamala Harris, they don't say, here's the person who's trying to be the president of the United States, right? They say, please welcome the next president of the United States. It's as if it's already there. This guy talks about that as if it's already happening. And you can bring some of that in as well. Take away the doubt. You're not pitching exactly what's happening right now with all the uncertainty. You're pitching where you're going, what could be. And I think certainty beats confidence. Confidence is a bit overrated. Confidence can cover a lot of stuff up. But certainty comes from substance. Certainty comes from doing the work, from having a team of people who every day work on making the product great and understanding what customers actually want, and a founder that's got a clear picture of where they're going. You don't have to be a great speaker to be certain. Just take a look at people like Richard Branson, even Elon Musk, not my favorite person, but he's persuaded a lot of people. Doesn't come across confident, but he's certain. He believes every word he says. Whether or not half of it is nonsense, another question, but he believes it. So certainty beats confidence. Okay, so what you can do what you can do to complete the investment marathon. Cold outreach, 5-sentence email, short attachment, ideally a one-pager or a few slides. First 2 minutes, your best stuff in the first 2 minutes. Pain, product, progress, and people. And passion. Make sure that they understand your vision and where you're going. Now, one more thing. Startup pitch or presentation would be completely incomplete without something from Uncle Steve. So one more thing. I told you I'm here to answer 2 big questions. And I think I've helped you with some of those, with the answers to those questions. What I can't help you with is the persistence that it needs. It takes a lot of work. Actually, I've been preparing a pitch for today, And it's taken a stupid amount of time, and I'm super busy at the moment, booked until 12th of November, and I've spent a stupid amount of time working on that pitch because I think it matters. I think it counts. And that's the one thing I really urge you to look at yourself and think, are we doing everything we possibly can? And as Muhammad Ali once said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. And, things are tough. You will find it difficult to raise, but if you keep following this process and you keep knocking on doors and you keep doing the right thing, you can do it. So don't quit. Suffer now. Live your life, the rest of your life as a champion. So ladies and gentlemen, do connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll get all the stuff. I send a message personally to everybody. Don't use AI for that. So if you get a message from me, it is actually from me. And I will send that to you tomorrow. And I wish you all the best. We'll take a couple of questions at the end if you have any questions on your mind. But before that, my name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I believe that great ideas need a voice. Thank you.
Presentation. If you have any questions, you can feel free quickly type your questions in the pad, and we'll ask to David now.
Just by the way, while you're thinking, I have a pitch planned, and I'm going to pitch in the Google Cloud area. It's a 5-minute pitch. There's a very empty audience over there. So if you feel like coming and being an audience, seeing how the pitch coach does it, feel free to come on over. Perhaps I'll just walk there straight after, and if there's space, then I'll just do the pitch then. I'm supposed to be on at 5:15, but if there is space there, I'll just do it straight away. Even if there's nobody listening, I just want to do the practice and do what my clients do. Hey. Cool. All right.
All right, someone's typing.
So no questions yet, which means utter clarity, right? Or is there something on your mind? Feel free to quickly tap it on. You can always come and find me afterwards.
We have one question.
Please.
So is there any major difference between pitching in the US and Europe?
Yes. So I coached more than 300 Dutch startups to pitch in America. And what you find is that European investors tend to be more focused on process, and American investors tend to be more focused on where you're going and vision. And if you look at how the cultural difference, the basic difference is that Europe kind of has a pessimistic history, and America has a kind of optimistic history, even after Trump. So the optimism of America really shows through in the way that they communicate about their ideas. And that phrase, it's not where you're coming from, it's where you're going. That's the difference between European pitching and American pitching. So if an American will come and say, okay, we're solving the multi-billion problem of such, and we've got an amazing product, we're going to be the first in such and such, we're going to be a unicorn in so on. Now in Europe, they'll say, hang on. When did you start your company? When did you get your first seed funding? What's your tip? Blah, blah, blah. They'll start talking about process. In America, they'll be like, amazing, how are you going to do that? It's a different mindset. And it's not that they don't want details, they want you to have the stuff to back it up. But if you lead with process, not vision, then that pitch will probably fall flat. Americans lead with vision, Europeans tend to lead with process. Now, European investors also want vision, but they want a lot of process as well. So there's a bit of a difference. Yeah.
All right, next question. Any trick to avoid stress before and at start of the pitch?
Yes. So there are 3 things. 1, learn the first 60 seconds. Learn the first 60 seconds. And just say them out loud. Like when I finish this, I will go somewhere, I will say out loud the first sentences of my pitch, because I also get nervous. I've been on stage literally thousands of times, and I still get nervous. 20 minutes before here, I get nervous. So the first thing is get the first 60 seconds rock solid. Second thing, watch the TEDx talk by Amy Cuddy. Amy Cuddy. You probably heard of power poses, And what she learned by scientific study is that if you stand like this or like this for 2 minutes or more, you get an increase in testosterone and a decrease in cortisol. Testosterone is power, cortisol is stress. So more power, less stress. Now the science has been tested, but I know it works. I've used it again and again over the years, and I've trained loads of people who use it. Problem, if you're, say, waiting here to pitch, and you're standing like this, they think you're nuts, right? But if you're standing at the side, and you just stand like this, nobody thinks that's weird. And even sitting big, head up, shoulders back, nothing crossed, this works. I've got terrible posture when I sit. I'm really sit like this, but when you're waiting for something important, do that. And the third thing is breathe. So while you're sitting big or standing like this, just get some air in your lungs and just breathe, because that reduces your heart rate, it slows your heart rate down, it reduces the cortisol, and it gives you, these three things also give you a kind of a grip. Most important thing is you make some conscious decisions to take control of your nerves. By the way, being nervous, almost everybody feels it. It's not about not being nervous, it's about managing it, turning it into energy, because nerves focus you, they make you do the work. It's not bad to be nervous if you feel that. So just follow those three things. First 60 seconds, power pose, and breathe.
All right, let's do one more question.
Please.
All right. So, how important are the numbers in the pitch?
So I think being specific is really important, but not overwhelming people. So again, take that example. Parking's quite difficult. We built an app for that, now it's easier. Completely not compelling. But if you want to give the size of the problem, then you can say 100 million, 20 minutes. So that immediately gives people an idea, oh, is this a big opportunity or not? Investors are not interested in product, they're interested in opportunity. So if they don't know how big it is, how would they know if they're interested or not? So we need to give a couple of markers of the numbers. So I do think how big is the problem and how big is the benefit? So for example, earlier on I saw a pitch over here. It was a great opening to the pitch. They said, who wants to get paid? Yeah, and how many of you would like to get paid quicker? Well, we help you with that. Okay, well that's a bit of a general statement, but it's a good one because everybody wants to get paid, right? Then they quantify the problem for companies. How many companies, how long they have to wait, how much it's costing. So three big things. The one thing that I advise them to do is to tell when they've done their thing, what's the result? So for example, on average 74 days of waiting. Okay, well when you do this, this and this, what does it become? 25? 50? What's the improvement? So once you say it takes 74 days, we need to tell them we're going to turn that to 25. So I do think the numbers help quantify the thing and help make it solid, and they build your credibility as well. All right.
All right, I think we can end it here.
Good, thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, everyone.
All right.